which could tip an enemy off as to what methods we use or any sources we have.
The committee's ranking Democrat, Adam Schiff, drafted his own memo and joined forces with senior Senate Democrat Dianne Feinstein. They want Facebook and Twitter to investigate claims the Release the Memo hashtag was the top trending hashtag among Twitter accounts believed to be operated by Kremlin-linked groups. As momentum to release the House intelligence memo builds, texts recently made public seem to reinforce Republican concerns about FBI senior leadership under former Director Comey.
Before we got these text messages, we all suspected the fix was in on the Clinton investigation. Now that we've seen these text messages, we know the fix was in.
Republican Senator Chuck Grassley released text messages from February 2016 that suggest now demoted FBI agent Peter Strzok and reassigned FBI lawyer Lisa Page fretted about the impact of a rigorous investigation of Hillary Clinton and the mishandling of classified information. Page writes, "One more thing. She might be our next president. The last thing you need us going in there loaded for bear. You think she's going to remember or care that it was more DOJ than FBI?" Strzok replied, "Agreed." They also discussed the idea of a special counsel to take over the Clinton email case and floated Patrick Fitzgerald, who investigated national security leaks during the Bush administration. The text referenced the use of non-government email accounts and encrypted apps for FBI business, a possible violation of federal records laws. Before the Justice Department confirmed thousands of texts were recovered after a technical problem, Grassley said the timing was disconcerting.
Maybe there's a legitimacy for it, but doesn't it seem a little strange?
Senator Grassley also wants to release transcripts from the committee's investigation of the June 2016 Trump Tower meeting, including an interview with the president's son. Grassley said Feinstein spooked potential witnesses from testifying after she released a transcript on her own about the Trump dossier. Feinstein said she wants the transcripts out as long as it doesn't impact the special counsel investigation. Lou?
Catherine, thank you very much. Catherine Herridge. Clear and rampant evidence of bias within the DOJ and the FBI this week revealed on all sorts of levels. Our first guest tonight says FBI officials have exhibited elements of a palace coup meant to disrupt the president both before and after his election. Joining me now, Congressman Matt Gaetz. He serves on a number of key committees, including Judiciary, Budget, and Armed Services. Great to have you here.
Good to be here.
And to see a group of you within the House of Representatives doing so much to meet the requirement, I think, that is fundamental. The public's right to know what is going on with a government that shows every sign, at least in the FBI and the Department of Justice at its upper levels, of just being absolutely corrupt.
Well, and Lou, I'm new to the Congress, but I'm very uncomfortable knowing the things that exist within this intelligence memo that my constituents don't know, that the American people don't know. And it really shows us throughout this entire experience that the FBI is all over the place, Lou. I mean, first they tell us, well, there's 5 months of missing text messages. That's inconsistent with the Inspector General on December 13th saying he had the messages. It's inconsistent with Rod Rosenstein testifying that they had the text messages. And now, lo and behold, more text messages are found again. And so there's a reason why the American people are losing confidence in the FBI. And I think the only way to restore it is transparency. Let's show the American people what's really going on.
There is no question but the requirement for transparency, particularly in a government that has been so lacking in transparency over the course of 8 years of Barack Obama. The actions taken by his intelligence chiefs, the actions taken by his FBI, and not taken by the FBI as well, showing a particular and determined animus toward Bernie Sanders and ultimately Hillary Clinton's opponent in the general election, President Donald J. Trump.
I believe there has been a criminal conspiracy underway to discredit and undermine the duly elected president of the United States. You had a cabal of people who believed that it was their job to deprive the American people of the president they elected. And we can't just analyze these data points separately. It all tells a story together. The text message you just showed in the last segment where Lisa Page is saying, well, we've got to go easy on Hillary Clinton. Link that to the emails that Andrew McCabe sent out in the Washington field office saying, we won't use the normal procedures. We won't empower the frontline FBI agents who are apolitical. We're going to suck this thing up to the head shed. And now we see what headquarters were doing with this investigation. They were doing everything they could so that Hillary Clinton never faced consequences.
The special treatment at headquarters that was called for early. And obviously, both Strzok and Page had gotten given their instructions. To see them react in these texts to that is it's stomach turning, because it is every sign that one could imagine in these texts. It's unequivocal. These people had made a determination and they sold out.
And the undermining of our democracy, Lou, should horrify not only Republicans, but all Americans. And that's why I'm working with Judiciary Chairman Bob Goodlatte to draft reform legislation so that the FBI can never do this again. Anytime there's going to be a headquarters special where we rip an investigation away from the people who are supposed to be doing it and putting it in the hands of folks who shouldn't be doing it, I want reports to Congress, I want transparency, I want stronger oversight, and that will protect our democracy going forward.
Yeah, and fundamentally, we've got to do something about the culture that has grown up at Justice and the FBI. Because we have an FBI that does not complete investigations. We have an FBI that is used by politicians in a highly politicized Justice Department as a shield against the public's right to know, rather than a determined investigative agency, a storied agency whose rank and file are expected to be on the front lines, whether it is enforcing the law or whether it is going after our nation's national security threats.
Well, and you mentioned this collusion between a political party and the FBI. I was sitting next to Mark Meadows reading this memo, and before he was done with the first page, he turned to me and said he never thought he'd see something in his life that was worse than Watergate. And I fear that we may be approaching that, and that's why it's so important to release this information to all of the American people. And Lou, I think it's going to happen within the next 2 weeks. It may happen next week.
All right, and in large measure because of your efforts and the congressman you mentioned, Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows, and I shouldn't have started that list because it's a long one, but we thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you, Lou.
Congressman Matt Gaetz. We're coming right back. There is, as you might suspect, a great deal more. We'll have it for you here. Stay with us. President Trump promoting America first and touting a strong economy.
America is open for business, and we are competitive once again.
A simple message for the global elites of Davos. We take up the president's success on the global stage with Pastor Robert Jeffress. And crying Chuck under fire. President Trump accusing Schumer of whining about a DACA deal. The White House immigration proposal met with opposition from both Republicans and Democrats and quite a few other people. I want to repeat what I said earlier in the broadcast about those people who are working tirelessly to get that House Intel memo freed and out to the American public. And chief among them is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Devin Nunes, who has been an absolute hero throughout in producing all of the documents and bringing to the public's attention what is going on in the FBI and the Department of Justice. Growing criticism tonight from both conservatives and Democrats over that White House immigration proposal, a plan that would provide, unexpectedly and surprising to many, amnesty for nearly 2 million DACA recipients and other illegal immigrants. Fox News chief congressional correspondent Mike Emanuel has our report.
America is a cutting-edge economy, but our immigration system is stuck in the past.
At the World Economic Forum, President Trump started making the case for his immigration blueprint.
We must replace our current system of extended family chain migration with a merit-based system of admissions that selects new arrivals based on their ability to contribute to our economy, to support themselves financially, and to strengthen our country.
The headlines of his plan were $25 billion for his proposed border wall system and a path to citizenship over 10 to 12 years for an estimated 1.8 million people. Today, the Attorney General highlighted switching to a merit-based system.
For some reason, when we're admitting new Americans, the future of our country, our government uses a randomized lottery system and chain migration.
From the right, Breitbart called the president Amnesty Don. And from the left, House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi launched this attack.
That plan is a campaign to make America white again. It's a plan that says over 50% of the current legal immigration will be cut back, that many people will be sent out of the country.
The Senate Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer, got into a Twitter feud with the president today. Schumer tweeted, "Unfortunately, this plan flies in the face of what most Americans believe." The president fired back. DACA has been made increasingly difficult by the fact that crying Chuck Schumer took such a beating over the shutdown that he is unable to act on immigration. A lawmaker involved in bipartisan immigration talks says senators will continue their work.
We're not going to be locked down by thinking about what the House might do or what the White House might do. We're going to move on our own.
But a leading House conservative says the focus needs to be on border security and fixing a broken system.
If it's the other way around, which is what Mr. Durbin wants and what Senator Graham wants, which is a focus on DACA first and then a little pretend security and a little pretend border wall and pretend chain migration, that's a different animal, and I won't be for that.
It is clear some of the moderates involved in bipartisan talks don't want the president's blueprint to derail their work. But after complaints from some lawmakers, they didn't know what the president wanted. Now they know. Lou?
Mike, thank you very much. The president's blueprint. Is there some confusion on Capitol Hill about who is President of the United States? It's really interesting to watch this back and forth at this early stage of what sure looks like a very amateurish game on Capitol Hill. We'll have, obviously, a lot more here tonight on that very issue. And be sure to vote in our poll tonight on the intelligence issue. Do you believe the Dems are blasting the intel memo they haven't read because they know the allegations of corruption and collusion are just straightforwardly true to begin with? Cast your vote on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. We'd like to hear from you, as always. And follow me on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Like me on Facebook. Follow me on Instagram at Lou Dobbs Tonight. On Wall Street, a record-breaking day for stocks. Again, the Dow Jones Industrial surging 224 points. The S&P up 34, the Nasdaq up 95. And as you might suspect, all three indexes closing at new record highs. Volume on the big board, 3.4 billion shares. For the week, the three indexes each gaining more than 2%. And we should point out that the Dow Jones Industrials has just set its 99th record since President Trump was elected. And the economy isn't doing badly. It continues to gain momentum, in fact, expanding 2.6% in the first report on the fourth quarter. The GDP growth rate slowed just a bit because of a widening trade deficit. You see, trade deficits do have consequences. They cut into economic growth, which cuts into our wealth. Well, order for durable goods posting the biggest increase in 6 months, up nearly 3% in December. And a reminder to listen to my reports 3 times a day, coast to coast on the Salem Radio Network. Up next, praise for President Trump from the globalist elites of Davos, for crying out loud. Pastor Robert Jeffress joins us to take up the president's populist pitch for America and his ideas on immigration. Later, hypocrisy on display as Dems try to block the release of that House Intelligence Memorandum. They haven't even read it, but they sure don't want you to. We'll take that up next. Stay with us. A trip to Davos, high in the Alps, with all of those globalist elitists and their orthodoxy. America once again is back, he said, and we're open for business. Here he is.
After years of stagnation, the United States is once again experiencing strong economic growth. The world is witnessing the resurgence of a strong and prosperous America. Now is the perfect time to bring your business, your jobs, and your investments to the United States.
Taking America first to the globalists and the elites. I love it. Joining us tonight, Robert Jeffress, pastor of the First Baptist Church of Dallas, former member of the President's Faith Advisory Council, Fox Business contributor. Great to have you with us. I mean, the president, he hit a home run in Davos. Can you imagine selling America first to all of those folks who think they're the big deal?
Well, he's a great salesman and a great leader. And look, we saw world leaders wildly applaud and warmly embrace President Trump in Davos, much to the consternation of the president's critics. And, you know, when you teach and say that America first means that the world is going to prosper. When America prospers, the world prospers. These world leaders get it. And Lou, I thought it was interesting that apparently the Vatican didn't get it, because earlier this week they were saying they hoped that the president would move away from that message and be more
the Vatican needs to get kind of a hold of itself. I mean, they had a cardinal there at Davos as well, Pastor, taking on capitalism. Cardinal, what is it, Peter Turkson, on behalf of Pope Francis, saying ambition for profit at all costs doesn't serve society.
He said He said capitalism has not served society well. Does he think communism serves society well? I would say capitalism has served the Catholic Church pretty well. It's served the evangelical church well. It's provided the billions of dollars for the church to do good in the world. It wouldn't happen under communism.
Well, here's, by the way, that means that the Vatican and its intellectual Illuminati somehow missed the history lesson of all history. The Pope also, I have to say, he took on fake news. He's being cheered for it. The Pope Francis saying that the fake news, goes back to the Garden of Eden, for crying out loud, and everybody suddenly is applauding. Where were they? Where were they?
Isn't that interesting? The Pope opines against fake news, and he's called a brilliant thinker, and the president opines against fake news, and he's called a fascist dictator. Somehow, Lou, that seems like a little bit of a double standard there.
Well, the great thing is, in Davos, high up there in the Alps, augurs well for not only for America, but, as he said, for Europe and the rest of the world. Pastor, great to have you with us as always. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Lou. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We're coming right back. Much more straight ahead. Did I mention the pastor's devotionals, The Pathway to Victory? I can't recommend it any more highly than I do, which is right up here, the top. Stay with us. We're coming right back. Newly recovered text messages between anti-Trump FBI lovers, just the latest evidence of a deep state working for Hillary Clinton and against President Trump.
If the fix was in on the Clinton investigation, and then these same people, top people at the FBI, started and ran the Trump-Russia investigation, might there be some bad things going on there as well? And as you look at these text messages, it sure looks like there is.
Greg Jarrett takes up the latest corruption evidence next. And this daredevil, giving us a thrilling new view of the Greek islands, will show you those beautiful islands and the amazing video when we return. Stay with us. We'll be right back. A do-nothing senator in the minority thinks that he is the one who should determine what constitutes a red line. Democratic Senator Mark Warner, who is the ranking member on the Senate Intelligence Committee. By the way, Senator Richard Burr would never let you assume that because he's deferred so much to Warner. But Warner nonetheless says firing Special Counsel Mueller is a red line that President Trump cannot cross. But what was left of Warner's credibility strained earlier this week when he said this about the House Intel memorandum. Quote, "I have not seen the memo, but I think it is sloppy, careless, and again, I think has no grounding in fact. Thank you, Senator, for telling us about something about which, yes, as you are accustomed to, about which you know nothing." Joining us now, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. Senator Warner is quickly becoming one of my favorites in all of this. He and Burr, they're just hapless.
Yeah, Warner tends to embarrass himself every time he opens his mouth, so that's a constant embarrassment. Well, his intellectual acuity is diminished every time he weighs in on a subject of merit.
Well, hopefully for him, he will not have to deal with that much longer. The president having to deal with all sorts of challenged folks like that. But this business returning to the swamp with the New York Times in full throat, braying about the president attempted firing of Mueller back in June of last year. And the herd-like national left-wing media following the story as if it was some It's something that happened.
Yeah, it is both amusing and tragic over the last 24 hours as the mainstream media has pronounced President Trump guilty of obstruction of justice. They don't know the first thing about obstruction of justice. They're utterly ignorant. They've probably never read the statute. If they had, they'd realize that it requires the president to have had a corrupt purpose. Even the New York Times story states a legitimate purpose. The president is concerned about Mueller's very genuine conflicts of interest. That's not a corrupt purpose to replace him for that. So it's not obstruction of justice. Moreover, the president would have to intend to interfere or impede the investigation. Simply replacing Mueller with somebody who is legitimate, fair, and neutral doesn't obstruct justice.
Yeah, I love the idea of the definition by the national left-wing media of obstruction of justice. That would be to get rid of a corrupt and conflicted special counsel and bring in a fair and impartial special counsel. That would be obstruction of justice.
The media doesn't know what it doesn't know. They're that dumb.
Oh, my gosh. Well, we're learning a lot more. We're starting to know a lot more. And let's put up one of the first texts between Lisa Page and Mr. Strzok saying well, I'm going to have to start there. Where is that? That's one more thing. She might be our next president. The last thing you need is going in there loaded for bear. You think she's going to remember or care that it was more DOJ than FBI? Strzok saying agreed. I called Bill and relayed what we had discussed. He agrees. I will email you and whoever was redacted there the same. This is, it is blunt force on the issue.
This shows that the FBI officials who were in charge of this investigation have the ability to influence it in any direction. Did so, exonerating her for a political purpose because they thought she'd be president. They wanted her to be president. They didn't want to alienate her or anger her. So they sought to absolve her, and they achieved that. So that is a corrupt purpose under obstruction of justice, as you and I were just talking about.
I can hear the national left-wing media applauding as we have found. Anyway. Let's go to the second one, and that is with the same Page and Strzok, lovers, officials, FBI, highly placed and memorable, saying this: thought of the perfect person FBI Director James Comey can bounce this off of. Patrick Fitzgerald.
Oh, yeah. Formerly a special prosecutor, independent counsel. This tells you that they knew that there was fairly strong and compelling evidence that Hillary Clinton violated the Espionage Act with her emails and probably obstructed justice by destroying evidence and probably lied to Congress, all in the same snowball.
And the third of these, and this has been around, but I think it's so important. Let's take a look at this. This is Strzok saying it's a real profile in courage since Lynch, knows no changes will be brought. That is July 1st of 2016.
The
one day
before Hillary is interviewed. So this puts a lie to what James Comey said before Congress under oath when he testified. He was asked directly, did you decide to clear Hillary Clinton before or after she was interviewed? He said after. Well, that text message shows that it was before. And not only that, we now have electronic timestamps on Comey's statement that shows on June 10th, 3 weeks before Hillary was interviewed, he changed the wording, which was originally to charge her, to exonerate her. So doesn't that put a lie to what he told Congress? Shouldn't he be charged with lying to Congress?
As you might guess, I would infer that the facts suggest precisely that course. Greg, let's wrap up here very quickly because I just want to get your reaction to this statement from the House Intelligence Committee Chairman, a man is, I think we all agree, who's been an absolute hero in all of this. His spokesman, Jack Langer, saying, quote, agencies that are under investigation by congressional committees don't typically get access to the committee's investigative documents about them. It's no surprise these agencies don't want the abuses we found to be made public, that a response to the Justice Department seeking the memorandum and seeking no disclosure to all of us in the great unwashed American public.
How completely dense is the Department of Justice and Rod Rosenstein to actually try to stop a document from the Intel Committee that implicates wrongdoing on the part of Rosenstein and the Department of Justice? I mean, do they think everybody's stupid?
Do you think that Attorney General Sessions also had a voice here or not?
I don't know. I tend to think he's...
You kind of hope not, don't you?
Yeah. I tend to think he's being manipulated, which is too bad.
Yeah, for the country. Thanks so much, Greg Jarrett, who is great for the country. We appreciate
Thank you very much.
Be sure to vote in our poll tonight. Do you believe the Dems are blasting an Intel memo they haven't read just because they know the allegations of corruption and collusion are true? Cast your vote on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. We'll have the vote count for you here tomorrow. Be with us. And please now roll the video and watch as this bold and daring athlete, oh yeah, free runner, parkour, turns the rooftops and balconies of Santorini, Greece into his personal playground. Watch as the thrill seeker leaps from rooftop to rooftop, if your stomach will permit, as he explores the beautiful neighborhood from high above, somewhat on the edge from time to time. Amazing. Up next, the left-wing national media making fools of themselves as President Trump fights back.
It wasn't until I became a politician that I realized how nasty, how mean, how vicious, and how fake the press can be as the cameras start going off in the back.
The president had a lot of fun in Davos, and I'll have a few thoughts on the sorry state of the national left-wing media here next. And later, Trump tax cuts already putting money in the pockets of working Americans, and the Dems, they cannot stand it, or themselves. But that puts them in a very large club. We'll be right back. Approval of his America First message and doctrine. They were wary in their first glimpse of the man restoring America as leader of the free world. And after 2 days, obviously, they were bowled over by his straight-on American style and common-sense policies. As best I could tell, only one group at the Swiss soiree was unmoved by the president and his message that all nations can prosper if they do what's best for their own people. That would be the left-wing media. And the only boos the president heard in his 2 days was when he called out the fake news media. And boos were weak and muted, however, just as you might expect them to be from such a group. The president now home and only cheering, the only cheering that he's probably will be remembering will be the memory of his Davos victory, because it is a substantial victory. Here at home, the fake news has spent the past 24 hours in near hysteria over that New York Times report I told you about a day in June of 2017 when the president didn't fire special counsel Robert Mueller. You notice he didn't do that any other day either. The latest fever dream in the left's Russia-Trump fantasy from which they can't break free, even if they wanted to. Meanwhile, the leftist media has ignored mounting evidence of corruption and collusion at the highest levels of both the FBI and the DOJ. Among the Clintons and Obama, among the former heads of the CIA and FBI, that fever still holds. It took the big three broadcast networks 5 days to even muster enough memory of their conscience and duty to report on missing memos between the FBI lovers Strzok and Page. When they were forced to acknowledge the scandal, they called it a kooky conspiracy and mocked the honest journalists' diligent digging into that story, in some cases for months and months. Is it any wonder the national left-wing media is now the world's least trusted institution? Americans have learned to tune out their noise. These are some of the folks who elected a president with a unique knack for speaking directly to Americans without either filters or elite gatekeepers. Those days are well behind us, I'm pleased to tell you, and we should all be deeply grateful. Now, the quotation of the evening from Dale Carnegie. He said this: "Inaction breeds doubt and fear. Action breeds confidence and courage. If you want to conquer fear, do not sit home and think about it. Go out and get busy." Thank goodness we have some folks doing just that. Up next, Democrats in denial about the success of the Trump tax reform plan. we take up their outrageous reactions. Gina Loudon and Dom Giordano join me here next. And a quick programming note, I joined Sean Hannity tonight talking about the White House immigration proposal. He and I have, I think, a consistent but somewhat differing view on several elements of it. And of course, we approach that with calm and reserve, just as we always do. 9 p.m. on the Fox News channel. Please join us then. Meanwhile, stay with us. We're coming right back. In fear as the midterm elections approach. They think they're going to win? Do they know they're going to lose? 90% of you said yes, there will be in that corner. Democrats doing everything in their power to not acknowledge all the good, all of the great things that the Trump tax reform plan has done for Americans and will do even more in the course of this year. New York and New Jersey and Connecticut, they've had it. They're going as far as to sue the president, claiming the tax legislation and law is unfair. Millionaire Nancy Pelosi claiming Americans are just getting crumbs with their $1,000 bonuses and wage increases. Here is the illustrious Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
I'm not sure that $1,000, which is taxable, goes very far for almost anyone.
Can you say elitist? Can you say annoying? So far, more than 250 companies have announced bonuses or benefits for employees, and they all credit the Trump tax reform law. Joining me now, Gina Loudon, political analyst, member of President Trump's Media Advisory Board. Great to have you with us. We're also expecting Philadelphia radio personality, Dom Giordano, but we're having technical problems, so we're going to bring him in, Gina, as soon as we can get the wires to work. Let's start with the president's four-pillar, I love that, pillar immigration proposal.
Well, you know, Lou, here we go again. This is the master negotiator. My opinion is this. He has done it once again, the president. He has given the Democrats a stage. He said, all right, you say you're worried about DACA recipients. You say you're worried about an immigration plan, path to citizenship. You say these are your concerns. Here's your stage. I'm lighting you up. Are you going to sing and dance? And Schumer says, no, actually, we aren't really that concerned about those things. As far as I'm concerned, they've already exposed themselves here, Lou, and they've ducked, and that's where we are. And
Dom, I'm told that we have all the wires working. Good to see you. If you can hear me. Can you hear me, Dom?
I can always hear Lou Dobbs. Come on now. We go to the moon to hear Lou.
There you go. Well, anyway, thanks for staying in Philadelphia to join us tonight. Great to see you, my friend.
Thank you, Lou.
The four-pillar immigration plan. Gina thinks that he's served up exactly what the Democrats should have wanted, but won't accept. What do you think?
I agree, Lou. Unless this is a ploy that President Trump realizes the Democrats are never going to go for a wall. I'm here with Bob Casey in a red state that Trump won. I can't see his base allowing him to vote for the wall. $25 billion of real money. He won't do it. So maybe the president is putting this out there to show how far he's willing to go to get a deal done, and the Democrats still won't do it. That's my hope, because if not, I don't think